And she says, if I'm doing everything that I know to do and I'm still struggling with this, there must be something I don't know. And I just kind of like put that out there to God. And I was like, okay, God, I am doing everything that I know to do. And I'm still experiencing this. So can you just show me what I don't know? If you are looking to move forward in your life towards your authentic dreams without sacrificing your emotional health, your nervous system, your relationships, or your spiritual health, well, you are in good company. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Courtney Lancaster, and this is a safe space for creatives. This is the Heal Create podcast. Welcome to another episode, guys. I have to tell you, this has been an absolute comedy of errors recording this particular episode. I already recorded this episode, and apparently I talked off the mic, and my husband noticed it, and I was like, I'm sure it's not a big deal, but it literally sounded like I was talking from the other side of the room. So I was like, oh, I gotta re-record that. And then just now my microphone wasn't plugged in, and then my light went out, and then I just knocked my books over, and then my camera just fell as I was recording it. So I had to start over. All for you and worth it. This is just a little bit of a different episode. I actually have interviews coming up again, which I haven't done a lot of interviews since season 1. And I'm really excited to begin them again because the interviews that I'm doing are people who have taken life creativity and applied it towards the things that they felt called to build with their lives. Creativity and working with creatives is something that I'm really passionate about. But the other part of that is that we are all creative. We are all creative and we're all creating things. So I'm going to start bringing in people that I think have created some really incredible things. Some of my really close friends, and then some people that I just are friends of friends. And so but for today, what I want to do is something that I'm always interested in when people that I really respect or look up to, or I kind of follow along with their life advice, tell me resources that they're consuming. And what I wanted to do today was talk about 5 books that I have read recently that have totally changed my life. Totally changed my life. I guess that's kind of an extreme statement. Really made an impact on me. And I would say in some ways, actually, yes, have changed my life. And for a while, well, I should probably say, when I was really getting into understanding trauma, understanding the nervous system and my own particular situation, as far as, panic and anxiety and a ton of chronic illness and, how all of that applied to me. I was reading a ton, but not necessarily in a regulated way. I was sort of reading in an emergency state. I was reading to save my life. And that is actually really, really true. I was reading trauma textbooks. I was like trying to get so deep into, just the roots of why I was experiencing what I was experiencing. And I did that for a few years. I've always been a reader, but I really leaned heavily into neuroscience, nervous system, regulation, self-help, really, really heavily. And I had to stop. I think 2023 especially, I really stopped reading any kind of I just was like, I am on a learning fast. I have to stop. I have to stop taking in new information for a minute. And it was great because I integrated a lot of things over the years, and I switched to reading for pleasure. I was reading novels. I was reading I don't even know, coffee table books, I guess. I was reading books about travel books, about Paris and fashion and music. And it was actually just so, so nice. And my brain absolutely needed that break. And then I actually got to a point with some sticky chronic illness symptoms last Friday. uh, last summer, and I have this saying that I live by. It's actually from Lisa Nichols, and she says, "If I'm doing everything that I know to do and I'm still struggling with this, there must be something I don't know." And the reason why I love that is because it's such a growth mindset, and it takes away the sort of end of the road feeling that you can kind of get when you have been dealing with something for a long time. So there were a lot of chronic illness symptoms that I really struggled with. I know that I have listed them out somewhere, but that's just what a dysregulated nervous system does. It shuts down your body over time. And so as I kind of my system, came back online and my body started to feel a lot better. There were a couple things that I was still like, what the heck is going on here? And so I said that, and I just kind of like put that out there to God, and I was like, okay, God, like I am doing everything that I know to do, and I'm still experiencing this. So can you just show me what I don't know? And anytime I do that, anytime I've done that, time after time after time, he has highlighted a podcast, a TED Talk, a book, a blog. Something has crossed my path that was immediately highlighted to me as like the answer that I was looking for, or like the road that I needed to take to resolve the thing that I needed to resolve. And that's what I did this last summer. So I kind of prayed that prayer, and I was just kind of aware that something was going to cross my path sooner or later that was going to help me understand some of these symptoms. And sure enough, I was at a bookstore with my friend Candace, and she said, "Have you heard of this book? It's a bunch of people are reading it and they say they really like it." And immediately she like she like pulled the book off the shelf, and it's actually like a really beautiful book, but I swear it was like, I just knew, oh, that's the one. That's the one I have to read. This was probably like a couple weeks later. And so I got this book, and it's called Good Energy by Dr. Casey Means. I know that I'm not alone in having read this and having it really impact my life and my health. I mean, more so maybe than any health nutrition book that I've ever read. And I've read probably a lot of them over the years. But I didn't think that I needed to understand metabolic health. That is never the thing that I was like, it's time to really take some time and understand this ever. I just knew that there was something I didn't know that I needed to learn. And so that led me on this journey of reading this book and then following along some of the podcasts she was doing, and then implementing some of the um, nutritional and lifestyle changes that she talks about. And it's not going to be anything that's like super extreme or different than anything you've heard anywhere else. But it's the way that she describes it in taking these really complicated ideas, I guess. The idea that metabolic health is the foundation for for all of your health. And basically like we have way too many specialties in the US, and we're the sickest that we've ever been. And I think it's something like 92% of us struggle with metabolic, like suboptimal metabolic function. And that is the root of every single illness that we experience. And so really understanding your metabolic health is vital, but it's basically the way that you heal your metabolism, and you're at a cellular level is by kind of going back to the way that things used to be in some ways, before all of this fast-paced technology that we live in now. And she says, and of course this is true, we can't avoid technology, nor do we want to, but we can integrate some habits that used to be really commonplace that would change everything. And she talks about that in her book. Okay, the thing that I love about this book is that she talks about how, the most important thing you can do for your health is face your fears, specifically your fear of death. And that is a really probably seemingly random thing for a doctor to write in a book, except that it made perfect sense to me, especially understanding that a nervous system that's on guard for you is what takes energy and nutrients away from all of your systems, your immune system, your cognitive functioning, your digestive system. It takes away everything that your body would need to operate optimally slowly over time, which is why your health kind of feels like it can get worse and worse, if it's trying to protect you. And that is, very simply put, living in fear. So there are a lot of things that we can do. And obviously we talk about this a lot on the podcast. This is what I do with clients now, is to help you in a way that doesn't overwhelm your capacity, face the things that you're really afraid of. It's really ironic too. And I came to understand this very slowly because I was just a terribly fearful person, which led me to, said panic attacks. That like the strongest you will ever be is by facing the thing that you think will kill you, and it doesn't. And so the fact that that was included in her book about overall optimal health for the world was just kind of confirmed everything that I had been learning myself and coming to the conclusion of personally that I think a lot of people are, which is that, living in self-compassion is the healthiest, most beautiful thing you can do for yourself. The next book that I had a love-hate relationship with that has really, really impacted my husband and I. We read it together, and the way that we parent is called Dopamine Nation by Dr. Anna Lemke. And Dopamine Nation is, I always say, like, it's a harrowing read. There's some real strong and really sad stories of addiction in this. But what I love about it is she talks about how people that struggle with addiction are actually like some of the most beautiful people to learn from, because they can explain in extreme circumstances the things that we struggle with on an everyday basis, which is this drive towards hitting the pleasure response in our brain through scrolling and shopping and sugar and all kinds of things. And the craziest thing about this book, and Ruby Rose Fox is my certification teacher in this season, and she was the one that kind of explained to me that if we hit the pleasure button too much, what happens is not that we feel more pain when we stop, but that we stop feeling much of anything. And what's supposed to happen with dopamine, this is especially important for performers to know, but what's supposed to happen with dopamine is you're supposed to, we will all obviously feel rewarded in our lifetimes with performers. It can huge hit of dopamine when we're on stage. And it's this like achievement. I did it. I got the hit of pleasure thing. And then what happens is that to balance that out, you experience, like, depending on how much pleasure you've been consuming or after, you'll experience an equal amount of kind of mild sense of pain. This is why a lot of performers the next day will feel this sort of like regret, or like they'll self-doubt, or they'll second guess themselves afterwards, and they'll just feel like kind of blah. And if we knew that that's what happened after you performed, then we wouldn't try and run away from it. We wouldn't try and distract ourselves. And then a lot of performers would really stay out of like some of the harmful things that, artists and creatives can get themselves into. But the same is true for all of us. I think the thing that it made us, my husband and I, most interested in was a screen time for ourselves and for our kids, and how we want to change things based on what we know about like what constant scrolling does to the dopamine pathways in your brain. Your body will fill you with literal like yucky feelings when you stop scrolling, which is why you keep scrolling. Same with sugar, same with shopping, same with any kind of addiction. And you might not even think of it as an addiction, and it doesn't necessarily have to be labeled as that, but you can notice that if it's not in alignment with your values and it's not for your like optimal health and expression and ability to live your life from your most authentic space in a healthy way, serving other people, then it would be counted under something that is hurting you. And so this book really challenged us. That's what I would say. We should read things and learn things that are challenging. And this was, at least once in a while, and this was that for me. yeah, like I said, it wasn't a fun read, but it was wildly educational. What I followed it up with was a way more fun read on the same topic. And it was kind of a follow-up to Dopamine Nation. And it was called Habits of a Happy Brain by Dr. Loretta Graziano Bruning. And this book is just fascinating to me and very, very, very easy to understand. It's almost like she's explaining it to like kids or something, junior hires, or like she's just so simply explaining the way that our brains work and the different happy chemicals that our brains fill us with, depending on the circumstance. Like dopamine is for a reward, and endorphins come when they're masking pain, which is why cold plunge is so effective. I love cold plunging. And oxytocin is the bonding chemical, the chemical that we get when we're bonding with someone or bonding with our baby or our partner or friends over a shared interest or over each other. Serotonin, this was the most fascinating one to me. Serotonin is the status chemical. It's the chemical that your brain fills you with when you feel respected, and the chemical that you lack when you feel disrespected or when you feel unimportant. This is so fascinating. She talks about how like we used SSRIs before we even knew what they were doing. And SSRIs are serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So they promote the production of serotonin, which basically like they promote the experience of respect. And she talks about how like self-respect goes a long way in repairing and replenishing serotonin over time. Not that different people it might not support them to be on SSRIs at different periods, but that is the actual chemical that it's supporting. And which makes sense because depression is anger turned inward. Depression is the sense that something happened to you because of you. And that's where it can lead. And so the idea that like the promotion of serotonin with these medicines or experiences can actually heal you, like self-compassion can actually heal chemicals in your brain, is just so thrilling to me. Like we are literal medicine cabinets in our own brain if we know how to take our own medicine. And that's what she talks about in this book, like how to actually change your brain and wire your brain to experience more of these positive chemicals in a way that is connected to healthy habits, like the kind of habits that you want that will get you to the goals that you want to get to. And I have recommended it, I think, to every single one of my clients. It's just fascinating. The last two books are, they were very educational, but they were really inspiring to read. The first one was recommended to me by one of my friends, Scott, and it's called Unreasonable Hospitality. If you haven't heard of this book or read this book, I feel like you're missing out. It is... my dad and I read it together over Christmas, and we just like kept looking at each other like with like little tears in our eyes, or like, oh my gosh. And basically it's just this restaurant owner owned a 5-star restaurant in New York who wanted to be the best restaurant in the world because of unreasonable hospitality. So that means that he paid such close attention to his customers that he gave them each unique one-of-a-kind experiences when they came into his restaurant. And then he eventually hired people on staff called Dreamweavers to pay close attention to the customers and provide for them like these really incredible experiences, like diners, maybe customers isn't the right word at a 5-star restaurant. Diners would come in and would be celebrating like they just purchased their first house. And he would have somebody on staff paint a watercolor picture of their first house and frame it and give it to them when they left. Or like there was a family that was dining there that said that they were visiting New York and it was so wonderful, but they never went sledding in Central Park. And so he had a car waiting for them when they were done with their meal with cookies and hot chocolate and took them to Central Park, and they got to he ran to a near drugstore and bought like, 4 cheap sleds and like took them sledding in Central Park. Stuff like that. Like absolutely over the top, unreasonable hospitality. And it was kind of his trial and error of trying to figure this out. But with the heart of it was like really elevating people and honoring people and like giving them an experience of valuing them in his restaurant. And he did end up becoming the number one restaurant in the world. And all of the stories are they're just so fascinating. And it was really interesting to me as somebody who owns a business and works with people, how to pay attention even more than I am to making each person feel really, really seen and known. And then how can I scale that? How can I do that for more people? Which is one of the reasons why I started posting online more, which might seem totally unrelated, but my goal is to, I think, mentor and support at scale and as many people as I can. And it is from that inspiration of like, just spreading more light and compassion and value into the world every single day. So, Unreasonable Hospitality. The last book that I read is so near and dear to my heart and gave me a new hero that I didn't even know that I needed. And it was Alicia Keys' memoir called More Myself. My husband sent me a podcast of hers, an interview that she did on Smartless, maybe, I don't know, like over Christmas break. And he was like, you have to listen to this. Like, she is your people. And I was listening to her with like tears in my eyes. Number one, because my partner thinks that I'm the same as Alicia Keys. But also because she is so grounded in her sovereignty. She is so secure in her femininity, in her power, in her leadership and her self-leadership. And that is absolutely something that I aspire to be and want to teach every woman who comes under my wing the same exact principles. So then I ordered her memoir and I'm reading her memoir. And this has been like she's been on such a journey, but the through line of like never giving up, like returning to self-trust again and again and again has just been so inspiring to read. Also, like, I am very interested in pop culture in general, and I always have been. And it's been exciting to kind of support people that are, close to some of that, just because I think that there are just so many opportunities for mass positive influence and for exciting connection through music and art and blah, 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 blah. And to hear her explain her journey just from like a behind the scenes standpoint of like 90s and early 2000s music industry is, if you're into that stuff at all, it's so fascinating. It's so fun to read. So anyways, I really highly recommend each of those books. It is very rare that I read like 5 books in a row that just hit it out of the park. And I honestly think that it's because I started the fall really like, okay, God, I'm ready to learn some new things. I'm ready to be inspired in new ways. I'm doing everything that I knew to do. And I'm just sort of going off the last directives that I feel like I have for my own life, the last things that I know that I wanted to create. And so I'm ready for new information. I'm ready to learn and I'm ready to be inspired. And I swear these books just like lined up, as well as like coinciding interviews and podcasts and kind of looking up different things, just continuing to learn about each of their messages and seeing how it can apply to me. I just got like a insulin, what is the thing you put on the back of your arm? You guys are saying it on the other side. I know. Yeah, that's the thing. I just bought one of those because of good energy and because I just listened to an interview with Dr. Casey Means on the Huberman Lab about her talking about like understanding, like we have these biomarking tools, like the actual tools that we can use, like your Apple Watch, that can help us understand our own bodies. And it's like having the manual to a car and really like knowing how do we optimally function. So just stuff like that. Yeah, all of this stuff has been really inspiring to me. So if any of those are highlighted to you, it might just be that God is trying to cross your path with it. And I would definitely pay attention to it. And I would also say, like, if you're one of those people that doesn't finish a book, I've been known to do that, finish the book. really give yourself like the gift of learning a new concept in full. So I love you guys, and I love that you're here, and I love hearing from you, and I'm just proud of this little tiny community that we have. I believe in you guys. If you need anything, just reach out, and I'll talk to you guys later.